Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for attending today's webinar session on the blueprint to migrating to SAP S/4HANA. If you have any issues viewing the presentation, please press the F5 key to refresh your browser on a Windows PC or Command Apple key and R on a Mac. For additional troubleshooting assistance, click the information icon on the bottom left of your screen and then click the help button and someone will be helping you right away. You will be sent a link of today's recorded session to the email address you provided at registration. You'll also be sent a copy of the presentation itself that our hosts have very generously offered to provide you by the end of the week. Please use the Q&A window for any technical issues or content questions. We will address any technical issues right away and will answer as many of the content questions as we can during the presentation. As a reminder, you can type your question in the Q&A window at any time during the webinar, and our presenters will also remain on the line given time after the presentation is over to continue answering your questions live. Before we get started today, our team has requested that we ask one quick poll question. And that poll question should be popping up on your screen now. So what stage are you in with your migration to SAP HANA or S/4HANA? Again, what stage are you in with your migration to SAP HANA or S/4HANA? I am just gathering information. I have fully engaged stakeholders and understand the functional requirements. I have completed a gap analysis and created a roadmap. Or I have an approved project plan and budget. Or you're currently executing the transition, or something that we didn't mention, other. Go ahead and make your response. Fantastic. Thank you for your responses. And now I'd like to introduce you to our speakers for today. Our first speaker, Christopher Hanshaw, Senior Director, Business Development and Strategy with SNP, and Wolfram Langer, Regional Director, SAP Sales and Solutions with T-Systems. And now I will hand it over to Wolfram. Wolfram, it's all yours.
I need to unmute myself.
There you go. We can hear you loud and clear.
I hope you can hear me now. Okay, good. Good. Yeah, very welcome also from my side. We introduced you in our last webinar already our support in the transformation to S/4HANA. And we introduced very briefly our collaboration with SAP on the so-called blueprint. The blue field approach, and we want to get a little bit deeper into that today, including a live demo with our partner. Our agenda today, the enterprise challenges that we see in the market with our customers, our T-Systems offering to face those challenges. And then we hand over to our partner SNP, Crystal Bridge, the suite from SNP to support the data transformation and the platform to do so. Then we will very briefly introduce the T-Systems SNP partnership, how we collaborate and how you can benefit from that. And then finally, we have the QA. As already introduced, my name is Wolfram Langer. I am the Regional Director for SAP Sales and Solution. I reside in Phoenix, Arizona. And Chris is our counterpart in the SNP arena, and he will take over after half of the presentation. So the enterprise challenges that we face with our customers. So the digitalization of business processes. They need enhanced data handling and lots of remote capabilities. Enhanced data handling in the way that we collect much more data today, and of course that needs to be analyzed. And remote capabilities, especially in the time of COVID-19, the data needs to be still available in real time and everything, and it needs to be everywhere. So the offices are mainly still empty, or only partially utilized. So remote capabilities are very key during these times. The SAP S/4HANA transformation has a great business impact and, of course, also improvements. That means when we talk about S/4HANA, we talk all time about a business project. It's not just an IT project. Very important that always the business is sitting at the same table and that we get all the planning and the transformation do together. We support our clients in doing so. We speak the business language, we speak the industry language, and this is all together. Then this requires a high transparency of data handling and processing. So we need to know, of course, all the interfaces, all the data that is coming in and out. If it is big data, then we even talk about Leonardo, the whole framework, how we integrate that and so on. So this is also about processing and automation and so on. Unknown usage and utilization of the current SAP implementation is very often that we don't have the transparency in place, that we need to create this transparency out of reports, out of an analysis, together with our customers. And this is exactly what we are looking in today as well. So that we always create a very good understanding of the current usage of the current ECC and Speed on HANA systems and how we go from there. So that we only migrate what is really in use, that we only migrate the data which is in use, the functionality is in what is in use, and so on. So we call it the catalyst of transformation to S/4HANA. The possible reasons. So this is more the technical view. We are looking at in-memory and cloud. So size and complexity of data sets are difficult to manage. This is where S/4HANA is coming into place, into the play, and to fix that. Of course, the costs of databases, licenses, and capacity, that needs to be considered. So we shrink the databases to the minimum, and to only migrate what is really has to be migrated, so that we create the biggest benefit with a maximum of efficiency and less costs. Industry 4.0, IoT, big data. So we look at the digital environments which require modern SAP applications and functionality. As I've mentioned, when it comes to automation into big data, the IoT is creating lots of data. It's not just that we have several sensors. Also, we have cameras and creating lots of data as well. And you need to look at that with a certain analysis engine to derive the right decisions and information for SAP out of it. So plant automation, robotics, etc. All those demand new digital integration capabilities, and the Leonardo framework is helping us doing so. Performance and usability. We look at the user experience, and enhance it as much as possible. The user needs to have a certain benefit from going to S4. He has to learn a lot, so the benefit needs to be visible and transparent. So there are fundamental changes of processes through the performance. SAP is doing lots of stuff that was not be able to cover in the past because the systems were just too slow. So it's not just in memory, it's not just fast, it's also covering more functionality and automation for the user, for the business processes. Yeah. And of course, ease of use and mobility, I have already mentioned that. ECC is end of life. Yeah, we know that SAP has already prolonged the dates. Yeah, nevertheless, it is coming closer, and we see the efforts, and we see much more companies and customers going into that direction. Everybody has it on the plate. Everybody is strategically planning it, regardless of the size of the company. Yeah. So we consider all the long project cycles, especially when the business processes are more complex. We talk easily about an overall time frame of a year or 1.5. Yeah. So it's the IT part is only a fraction of it. Yeah. But the business part is very important, including training and all the adoption and changes. So we look at several areas here. We will concentrate today more on the IT side. Nevertheless, is what I have introduced already last time is there are parts like strategic transformation, mergers and acquisitions, including carve-outs, and reorganization, new business models. This is all happening on the business side, and the IT is supporting it. And when it comes to innovation and digitization, this is where IT needs to push for it. Yeah. So I always say we are back in the 90s where the IT knew very well the business and came up with solutions and supported as much as possible the business in the digital way. This is exactly where we are back in. Yeah. So when it comes to the shared services in a company like finance and HR management and analytics, this is also very well supported by, and the IT needs to go into this area very much. Logistics, we need to understand what is exactly already covered by the functionality and how we can adopt that into S4. Yeah, and then we go down to the IT area where we have pure landscape transformation, big data, public-private cloud, and data harmonization. So today we look more with our partner SAP into the landscape transformation and also in the data harmonization and system consolidation. So which challenges are we facing? We have currently lots of customizations, and we need to transform and transport as less as possible to the S/4HANA environment. Yeah, because we first look at what is already covered by S4, what functionality is covered, and what really is needed on top. Yeah, so this means we need to understand not just the customization which is in place, also the usage and utilization of it. Yeah, because you don't want to transport something that is not used. Yeah, and you believe me, this is more than 60% of the functionality that is programmed in the systems is not in use at all. Yeah, but of course you need to identify the right ones. How does a move to SAP S/4HANA impact our other systems? SAP is not an island. We have lots of interfaces to other applications. We need to understand them and we need to transport them to S4, of course, as well. Yeah. And how do I estimate my system sizing? Yeah, there are several tools in place, but they always estimate, the standard SAP tools are giving a certain estimate based on the current sizing, not on what is really needed. Yeah, so we try to optimize it as much as possible. And how do I find my ideal and efficient roadmap to S4? Yeah, this is where we help you module by module, understanding the business support and building the roadmap accordingly. So how do we get engaged? Yeah, so we look at faster objectives, data-driven approach. We transform together without risks. Yeah, so we have fixed price packages, timelines across the stack, and from application to infrastructure. So we are end to end, and we will discuss with you end to end. Yeah, stressless, secure operation, end to end, as I have mentioned. Transform the IT landscape in an agile mode. Yeah, very important that we get all the possibilities that we gain from S4. Yeah, and we move already many customers to a DevOps model to get them as agile as possible. Yeah, so all that roadmap, including cloud strategy, this is all what we will create if it is not already in place. Can help you with that. Also, many customers are asking us, how do I explain my business, my internal customers? What is the benefit? And we always say the best is you implement a proof of concept for them. You get a sandbox installation. You show them how it works so that they can touch and feel it. Yeah, and we will support you in that as well. Of course, lots of workshops. Yeah, in these times, lots of remote workshops. Yeah, they are more easy to set up, and then we will identify critical findings and onboard the business departments together with you and enabling all the services that are needed. There are certain accelerators that we can provide. Yeah, so of course, a discovery workshop with where we get all the innovations adopted to our customers. We define and implement the proof of concept system. We look at the current readiness and do an analysis and preparation. We come to that later today. And back to standard approach, which means look at what is already covered. Don't change it too much, and put on top what is not covered. Yeah, so it's supporting all the options, including Greenfield. Okay, now I would like to hand over to Chris to look at the Crystal Bridge, the data transformation platform that we can offer together as part of our overall transformation story for you. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Wolfram. Thanks for everyone for coming today. Again, my name is Chris Hanshu. What I'm going to walk through today really is a little bit about our data transformation platform that we call Crystal Bridge. I'm going to talk a little bit about our approach and an alternative approach to your S/4HANA migration that we call our Bluefield approach. And then I'm going to dive into our analysis software that we use to help support the blueprinting process and the assessment work with T-Systems in order to help you maybe think of a little bit different way to plan and scope your S/4HANA conversion as well. So with that, let me dive into the slides. And I'm probably going to move through these slides quickly because we've got a live demo plan. So I'd like to have lots of time to show you some of our software. So please feel free to note down any questions you have as we go along, and we'll do our best to answer those at the end of the session. So, you know, in order for us to kind of help out with these kind of S4 transformation projects and the analysis and some of the landscape optimization, at S&P, we've been building out our data transformation platform for the past 25 years. And really the idea is that kind of built into the software itself is the knowledge to take on some of these complex projects like an S/4HANA conversion, a merge or bringing systems together, system carve-outs, and really look at some of these common transformation projects and find ways to put them together into single projects to build an ideal roadmap, and really to kind of, you know, get a better handle on in a better way to migrate and transform data. And so we do that as we move kind of into the bottom left-hand corner with what we call our mission control and the different modules in the application. And we have an analysis module, which we're going to look at today. We have a module called empty shell, which is all about, you know, how do we create an empty copy of your ECC system as a baseline. We have the transformation software, which is the module that moves the data back and forth between systems. And we have some other modules that are in here that we can always dive into deeper at a later time, but less important in the context of S/4HANA. And then as you move to the bottom right, which is our periodic table, this is the kind of the different components that belong to each of those modules, and how they line up. So some of the different functionality that we have available for each module, and we'll talk a little bit about how some of these work in the next couple slides. So kind of as we move forward and we think about the transformation scenarios that you might be considering, what we know and what we have based on the experience of working with our customers is, you're constantly taking on these kind of projects. And we also know that traditional approaches to transformation sometimes make your project roadmap long. You have to do projects sequentially. You can't combine them together. You have multiple go lives, multiple test cycles. And really it becomes challenging to manage that roadmap moving forward. What we have the ability to do is look at some of these different transformation scenarios, like a conversion to S/4HANA. When we talk about a system merge, we have a lot of customers that are currently looking at optimizing their system landscape as part of their S/4HANA roadmap or in preparation for their S/4HANA migration. So they're talking about bringing systems together, maybe their regional systems. We have customers that are still looking at potentially some type of modernization or move as an interim step. So maybe they're going to move to the cloud on HANA prior to S4. Maybe they need to do an enhancement PAG upgrade as part of that. So we look at a lot of kind of what we call modernization and move scenarios. One of the other areas that we look at is harmonization. So you can think of what we at S&P refer to as harmonizing things is, maybe I need to do a new general ledger conversion. Maybe I want to do a new chart of accounts conversion because I'm running multiple charts of accounts based on past history, and I want to standardize on a single chart of accounts. Maybe I want to do a profit center reorganization. So this is the harmonized piece is all about how do I change the way that my current system is operating, and how do I change the functionality in my current environment. And then we do things like carve outs or selective migrations, oftentimes with divestitures or even part of an S4 migration. So it's really kind of looking at all these different scenarios and figuring out, what do you need in order to either optimize your roadmap, simplify the number of projects you have to do, or maybe even it's do multiple of these types of projects in a single step to S/4HANA. So that's kind of how we look at data transformation. So, when you leverage our data transformation platform in order to consider an SAP project, what you're going to get is, you're going to get transformation software that has been used on some of the largest transformation projects for some of the largest SAP customers across the globe. And so our methodology and our pre-built content is built into the software. So based on all of these projects, we're able to provide content, provide rule-based, provide best practices in order to undertake any number of the projects that I've already mentioned. Again, because of this, then this gives you the flexibility to simplify and accelerate your roadmap. So we have customers that go very aggressive with big bang go lives versus, maybe it's more steps and a simpler roadmap than what you could do without us. We offer things like go live flexibility. A lot of times you're tied in something like a new general ledger conversion to an end of a fiscal year go live. We have the ability with our software to let you go live on new general ledger, for example, anytime throughout the year that you'd like. And then we also have different ways and techniques that we can minimize your downtime for cutover. So really it's taking all of this knowledge and putting it into a nice prepackaged solution for you to help you achieve your data transformation needs. So that's the intro to the software platform. Now what I'd like to do is kind of introduce you to our S/4HANA approach. And really, if you think about kind of the two main approaches that you've got available to you in the marketplace, on the left-hand side, you have a greenfield, what we always call greenfield, right? Which is it's a new implementation. You're going to re-engineer your processes. You're going to get a master data and open item migration. So it's a clean start. A lot of customers are looking at this because of they feel they want a clean start. They've been running SAP for so long, and they just want to kind of clean up the sins of the past. And then on the other side is your brownfield system conversion, right? This is taking your existing instance, converting that instance. You have to take your entire data set with you, so all of your history comes with you. And in order to do a brownfield conversion, oftentimes you might have to do pre-projects, and you only get mandatory simplifications as part of this process. You don't really have a chance to kind of take on any type of transformation or reengineering unless you do it as a separate project. What we've built out with our software platform is an approach in the middle that we call Bluefield. That what this allows you to do is take advantage of our software platform in order to do a selective data migration. So for instance, if you want to take 5 years of history versus the current 20 years you've got in your existing instance, we offer you that capability. If you only want to migrate active company codes because you've been through a lot of past M&A activity, we give you that capability with the selective data migration. So you can immediately reduce your data footprint from a system conversion, or give you more data than you would get with a greenfield migration. The second key advantage to leveraging our approach is you can do targeted transformation. So for instance, if you want to transform your finance organization and the way your finance operations work, but leave your logistics alone because that's working well for you, we offer you the ability to do that targeted transformation for just the finance area. And then finally, we give you the ability to combine some of those brownfield pre-projects, like a business partner conversion or a new general ledger conversion, into your single S4 go live. So compared to what you might think of with a brownfield conversion, right? We can take all of these individual types of projects and combine them, right? So we can potentially remove the need for data archiving if your goal of data archiving is simply to reduce and delete data out of your system. We can combine that new general ledger and that business partner conversion with a cloud migration and your S4 conversion into a single go live. So you're going to reduce your go lives, you're going to reduce your test cycles, you're going to accelerate your path to S4HANA, thus allowing you to take better advantage of the platform and the newer technologies in the future. And then kind of how that works technically, and putting it all together with the software platform is, if you think about this, if you think about your ECC environment, right? Your ECC environment has your application and your customization, so your IMG repository, your custom data objects, and then it has your data. In this case, in this example, we're looking at maybe data code at a company code level that we want to maybe do a selective carve out for. So the first step in the process is to leverage the empty shell component to create an empty ECC environment. Once we have that empty ECC environment without data, now we can do like pre-S4HANA customizing and cleanup. So we can do all of those customizing prereqs that you might have to do to clear your system checks. Maybe you want to clean up unused customizing, IMG customizing that you're not using anymore. Maybe you want to delete some third-party applications out of your system that you're not using anymore. Because this system does not have data, you now have got more options to do that kind of cleanup and prep for your migration. The next step is to use the standard upgrade process to get to S4HANA. So this takes the empty system without data. It does the sum and the DMO process. And at the end, you have an empty ECC instance. So now you've got that instance ready, and it's ready to start any post S4 conversion activities. So now we can come in, and this is where we can start to do things like reconfigure how my system works. So maybe I want to reconfigure my chart of accounts. Maybe I want to reconfigure my enterprise structure. Maybe I want to reconfigure and consolidate my order types or something along that line. Because there's no data in my system, I now have the ability to take on some of that work without having an impact on my existing data set. And then finally, as part of this, we use the transformation module of the platform in this case, we're showing an example of selectively migrating a company code, right? And then as part of that selective migration, we're then going to do some of the S4 mandatory transformations, like we're going to convert your vendors and customers to business partners. We may have to do some general ledger processing logic. And then finally, we can do some of that targeted process transformation. For instance, maybe you're doing a chart of accounts conversion. So this is the point where we can do that data transformation as we're loading it into the S4 instance. So this is what gives us the flexibility, again, to kind of take advantage of doing a selective data migration. You don't have to convert all of your history, right? Combining pre-projects, and then finally targeting the areas of transformation in the system that I want to transform. And so one quick example of this from a customer that followed this process. They went through a 2-year project in order to reduce 4 productive clients into a single client, and then took advantage of kind of cleaning up and reverting back to standard. So they removed 87 unused company codes from their environment. They reduced their number of chart of accounts in the chart of accounts by 94% by standardizing on a global chart of accounts. Things like they reduced redundant customer master data, so they had the same customers across the different clients. So this is the kind of cleanup and things that are available to you that may be more difficult in a brownfield conversion, and then you can leverage this process to do it with maybe you're not ready to take on a full-blown new implementation from a greenfield perspective. Okay, so that's a little bit about the platform. It's a little bit about our approach to Bluefield. Next, what I want to kind of walk through is back to the topic of, how do we blueprint? How do we analyze your system? What are the things that we can do with our software platform that may be more difficult to do with other techniques? And so we're going to dive a little bit now into our analysis module. And here, you can think of leveraging our analysis module in order to get a very fast X-ray of your ECC environment. What this allows us to do is look at, what does your current enterprise structure look like? How much data is in your system? What's the impact of migrating active company codes for a certain set of years? What is the used and unused customizing in my environment? How far away from standard am I? So just different ways to very quickly assess your system that with a traditional approach that you may be used to with other systems integrators and long time work in the SAP consulting world is I'm going to send you some questionnaires. I'm going to go into SE16 and do a bunch of table dumps. Maybe we have a bunch of back and forth emails to ask and answer questions. Those are all things that we're removing from your blueprint process with software. So I'm going to jump into the demo. So in. And so this analysis is browser based. And you can see here on, it's loading up. So I get my system set up correctly. And the key way that we kind of start to look at the system down the left-hand side are really the 3 main areas we're going to talk about today. We talk about the enterprise structure. So how are my legal entities structured? We're going to talk about the application and how the application is configured and set up. And then we're going to look at the data that's in my system. So jumping to the first area of enterprise structure, we very quickly can get an overview of where your different company codes are, where they're operating, where you may have used versus unused locations. So kind of a different representation. A lot of our customers use this if they want to do a wave migration, for instance, to S4, in which case they may decide they want to migrate North America first and Europe second. This is kind of how we can get a breakdown of what that wave migration might look like. We can switch to a different view, which is more of a hierarchical view of my org structure. And then this is color coded, and basically you can see things like, here's a controlling area for food and beverage. That controlling area has 2 company codes, good food, CP beverage, and then each of those company codes has plants and sales orgs and purchasing orgs attached to it. So this view starts to give me my actual kind of my hierarchical view and how my entities are related. The other thing that I can do in this application is I can actually build out what a selective migration might look like. So I mentioned this earlier, but one of the most common scenarios our customers come to us and ask us to do is, I want to migrate only my active company codes, right? I want to migrate those active company codes for 5 years and do a time slice. So those are the most common scenarios that we work with from a selective migration perspective. I can actually select those company codes, kind of like building a selection screen in ABAP, right? I can add that company code to my selection and start to build out what the scope of this migration might look like. And so in this case, I pre-selected some company codes. You can see they have this heavy green circle. So that, or the heavy circles over here, that represents basically, what I'm selecting for my migration. Throughout the application, you can see different things. We always have, viewing the selections. So viewing the items I've looked at. We can filter views down by saying only show me those company codes that I selected for the migration. We have a capability to export a lot of our different data out to Excel. I can do things like looking at used. You can see my things here change versus unused. And then one quick thing I'll show you here. I can actually start to predict the percentage of the system that I'm going to extract out, right? So based on the company codes that I've selected, I would expect to see 25% of the system, about 133 gigabytes worth of data going out of the environment. Another interesting view of our organization unit is, active versus inactive company codes, plant, sales orgs. This is a view overall of how many plant of the active and inactive items. And then I'll switch to this is a really interesting view of the data. And how you read this chart is basically saying, if I pick on 2008 right here, this is the last time that I used one controlling area, one company code, 4 plans, one purchasing order, one sales order. So I stopped using those entities in 2008. So if I considered a time slice carve out of 2012 and forward, right, I would be leaving behind all of this data from 2011 backwards. So we see this chart look a lot like this pattern here, specifically with companies that have been through a lot of M&A activity. Maybe they divested businesses, and then also, if they haven't done a lot of data archiving, we see a lot of typical patterns like this in the system. Okay, jumping over next to the application and how the application is configured. One of the key things that we like to look at is, how is the application used? So basically taking a view of the SAP application hierarchy, and we can drill into the different areas. And in this case, we're going to kind of go into asset accounting. And if we look at basic functions for asset accounting, we analyze the usage of an application component in 3 different ways. So the first thing we look at is, business objects. So I'll talk about this here in a minute, but essentially this answers the question, do I have data, in the basic functions of asset accounting? So yes, I have asset master data. I have 18 asset masters in this system. The next area that we look at is, have I executed SAP transactions that are classified as asset accounting basic functions? And so here's my system usage and whether or not I'm using those transactions or not. And then finally, we look at the customizing tables and whether we have customizing entries and customizing tables or not. So basically a three-way lookup of how you are using different functions in the SAP environment. Okay. Another area, the customizing explorer. So we know you saw in the case study that I showed that a lot of our customers take an opportunity when they're doing these kind of projects to either revert to standard customizing or clean up customizing they're not using. So we have a customizing explorer that looks at some of the key IMG customizing in the system. So for instance, if I go to MM, if I go to Mara and material type, I can go out and get a very quick view of what customizing values I'm using for material types, right? In this case, we see that for the most part, as expected, since this is a demo IDES system, right, mostly standard material types are being used. A lot of times what we see for customer systems is they've created Z material types or any other Z order types and are using non-standard order types and material types. So again, looking for opportunities to clean up and potentially, customers that are merging systems look at this to compare and maybe even consolidate customizing as part of a system merge. Next, I'd like to jump into the data. So you saw when we looked at the module usage and we talked a little bit about whether there was a business object that had data. Really, one of the key areas that we've been building up, and when I talked about having predefined content in the transformation platform, it's this concept of a business object. And we have over 800 business objects built into our repository, and all of these business objects represent a piece of data within SAP. So for instance, what I'm showing you now is the material master area. And so you can see we've got material documents, purchasing contracts, purchase orders, quotations, purchase recs, right? So all of the different data within SAP. So this is kind of the objects and what the key selection criteria would be for that object and how we would want to define how we're going to select that data for the migration. If I jump into something like material documents, we can see a further breakdown of which plants have material documents. And then even further, you saw that I selected data earlier. Anything that's yellow here is something that I would have selected for the migration. So I can turn this on and off. Like let's say I don't want to take plant 1200. I can deselect it here from my selection, right? And I can get an overview of which material documents are selected and which ones aren't. And then as well as the distribution across plants. I also can, if I want to look a little closer over here, right, I can see that, plant for Paris in 2014 had 40 material documents, and that's all that they had. I also have the ability for some of the key transactions to look at a time-based view. So now we can start to bring in that whole idea of how much history do I want to bring across and how many years of data do I have in the system. And so I can see for plant 1000, right, every year that has a material document, the number of instances, and then again, the yellow ones are the selected years for migration in this case. So kind of a different view and start to look at my time aspect of how the data is stored. Switching, from the SNP standard content to the business objects, we can switch over to a custom table analysis. So we can very quickly look at all of the tables in your system. We can look at which tables are tied to an organization unit. So for example, if I'm doing a company code carve out and I want to know which tables have company codes in them, we can look at that. We can look at the data for the company codes and then get an idea of the customer tables. Another interesting thing that I will show kind of the last area of the demo, and then we'll go back to questions. And so we have time for some questions. Is part of a separate analysis of your system, we can actually look at all of the interfaces that are running in your SAP environments. So we'll run extracts and collectors of your communication logs within any of your ABAP stacks, and we can build out, what are all my systems, how are they talking to one another, down to even the message and volume level. So in this case, I've got an ERP system, I've got a warehouse management system, and I can see that, between those two systems, there was 1.3 million calls. And then I can even go down and see at the message level how many calls were done per message. And this is also great, if you think about planning some type of maybe you're going from on-premise to cloud or on-premise to a hosted environment, how do I make sure, one, that I've migrated all my interfaces? How do I make sure that I'm shutting down interfaces that maybe are configured and set up that I don't want to run anymore? And then how do I test all my interfaces? I know some of my upgrade and platform migration experience. It's one of the biggest gotchas that happens late in testing or even after go live. You find that one interface that you hadn't planned for, and all of a sudden you're stopped, and you've got to take time to figure out what happened with that interface and why it's not working. So leveraging the interface analysis is a great way to help plan those aspects of your project. So again, also built into we have some merged and some comparison functionality that's built into this platform that we can quickly understand. What happens if I want to merge two systems together. All things that are available as you're considering this blueprint and planning out your migration. So just to kind of wrap up real quick, a little bit about SNP. As I mentioned, we've been in business for over 25 years. We have a global presence across the globe. We have been working with T-Systems for a very long time, multiple projects, and even their consultants are trained on how to leverage the SNP platform. So we've got a great relationship there. It always comes up. Everyone always asks us, "Are you SNP certified?" Yes, we're SAP certified. We've got a long-time partnership with SAP and an OEM relationship. But beyond being SAP certified, we've been through a process with the two leading auditors, Ernst & Young and PwC, who have basically come through. They've audited our software, our methodology, our procedures, to verify that when you do a project with SNP, with software, with their methodology, that it will stand up to an audit at the end of the day. So kind of an additional financial audit stamp of approval as well. And then again, just some of the customers we worked with over the years. I mentioned we've done some of the largest SAP projects, SAP transformation projects for some of the largest customers throughout the years. And so with that, I will turn it back over to Wolfram to wrap up.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, as I said, SNP is a market leader in the transformation software. Yeah, we collaborate in this area since a long time, as Chris has mentioned. We do the transformation cockpit together to optimize the transformation of your systems to S/4HANA with a very much reduced risk and efforts in the projects. Yeah. As you mentioned at the beginning, if you understand your current usage, your utilization, and we go from there as a transparent starting point, we can reduce together the efforts in the transformation project a lot and create a lot of understanding and trust on all sides inside your organization, so that all the parties are involved and understand the transformation to S4. Yeah, it can be used to optimize the S4HANA projects, make them very much predictable for all sides. Yeah, and our consultants can deliver on that approach and enable and establish the return on investment that you need to be on budget inside your company. Yeah, the whole pick and choose approach makes you not having black or white. You can look at the possibilities per module and go from there. Yeah, this is a very valid approach that works in many customers, independent from the size. Yeah, and we would love to do this together with you. Next slide, please. Yeah. So if you have any questions, please don't feel free to reach out to myself and to Chris. We are happy to answer. We are well linked to each other, and we would love to follow up with you on your projects and to support you in your journey to S4HANA. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Wolfram, Chris, thank you so much for your presentation and for your expertise. I know the audience appreciates it as well. We do have some questions that have come in. Do you mind if we spend a couple of minutes having you respond to a few of them?
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right, let's see here. The first one that we have is, how can I engage T-Systems and SNP to support my S4HANA preparation through the shown analysis?
Yeah, so as I have mentioned, please reach out to us. We will see how your systems and your landscapes are set up, and we can even offer a free proof of concept for one module together. Yeah, and then we can go from there and do the analysis for the whole landscape.
Thank you. The next one that we have came in. It says, is this only ECC to S4, or does this connect to non-SAP ERP systems?
Yeah, this is what we've talked about today is strictly for SAP ABAP-based applications. So it's all meant to migrate SAP and some of the business suite applications.
Perfect. All right, that was a pretty easy one. Let's see here. How does S&P handle migrating custom tables?
Yeah, so I showed in the demo kind of that custom table view, and we go through a process. So we have pre-built content in the platform, but we also then have the ability to build custom business objects or custom content for migration. So we would look at the analysis that I showed you. If we're doing a legal entity or a company code-based carve-out, we'd start to identify the tables that are tied to those company codes, and then we'd start to build out objects into the platform that would be included in the data migration process.
Perfect. All right, let's see here. Next one is, can Crystal Bridge software be bought and utilized internally, or does it only come with SNP consulting work?
Yes, you can get Crystal Bridge on a subscription basis.
Perfect. And let's see here.
We would recommend that you set it up and get the first analysis together with our consultants. Yeah. So, and then you
good
can
addition.
go from there.
Yeah, and let me clarify that. It really, I was referring to kind of the analysis and the interface work. When it comes to the actual transformation part of the platform, that comes along with T-Systems and SNP consulting work.
Perfect. Thank you for rounding out that question for us, Chris and Wolf. Let's see here. And one last one before we wrap up. How can I engage T-Systems and SNP to support my S4HANA preparation through the shown analysis?
Yeah, I think we have answered that question already.
Yeah, it looks like several people asked it a different way, but as Wolfram,
so please reach out to us, and we will go from there, and we'll look into POC and everything else.
Perfect. And this is pretty great too. I can tell you that when we do these webinars, not every presenter, especially both presenters, especially with people so expert in their area of individual expertise, make their individual contact information, phone numbers, and email addresses so visible for you. So feel free to note that down as well. And we wanted to thank you so much, Wolfram and Chris, for giving us your time today and your expertise. If you do want to reach out and you're an audience member today, like I said, feel free to reach out to them directly. And we'll also be sending out follow-up information for you if you're an attendee today with a copy of this presentation so that you can refer back to it if you're looking to review it or talk with your teams. You also may notice that attached to this webinar today are 3 different white papers and pieces of information for you to help you get an even better understanding of what might be available for you and your business. So take advantage of those as well. You will also be sent a link within the next day to the on-demand version of this webinar. So if you want to review anything, if there was a part that you missed, if you got on a little bit late, no worries. We'll be sending that link out to you so that you can review in your own time. So Wolfram, Chris, thank you so much for your time today. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, this is Chris. I'd just like to thank everyone for joining, and I hope you found the content valuable and would help you out with your S4 plans.
Yeah, thank you very much also from my side. Yeah, and thank you for spending your time with us. Have a great day.
Absolutely. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for spending some of that valuable time with us today, and we look forward to seeing you on the next T-Systems webinar. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.